right, so what we're doing here today is we're doing our 8th grade safety rules. Now, your 8th grade safety rules take you to the next level. Those of you who had some form of tech ed in 7th grade or you've had it in STEAM this year, we are taking it to the next level where we are really going to put you in front of almost every machine here in this lab. So that means it's important that we safely operate these things. The first thing here we're going to go over just our general safety rules. Like I said before, if you know what's on this first page and the back of the first page, you should be okay. Sometimes it's more or less remembering which machine is which. So if you're getting confused on which machine is which, please make sure you raise your hand. Make sure I get you taken care of. All right, general safety rules. First of all, no tools are to be used unless they have the teacher's permission. There's 2 forms of permission. One of which is your test, which you need a what? 80% or better on your quiz. And 2, I will give you permission to use the tools that day. You will never just come straight through the room and start working on things. You will always report to the seat where you currently have been assigned, and that is where you're going to start the day. We will not just come in through the door and start working. So those are the two forms of permission. 2, safety glasses must be worn. If you wear regular glasses, I am totally fine with you just wearing those as your safety glasses. I would much rather you see what you're doing than have a piece of plastic on your face and not be able to see. So you can use your regular glasses. If you happen to wear contacts one day, you will have to wear our regular safety glasses here. All right, next thing here, no open-toed shoes, long hair, loose clothing must be secured. Not so much a big issue here in the winter months with open-toed shoes, in other words like flip-flops and sandals. If you happen to have worn sandals on a crisp November day or December day, bring your gym shoes to Tech Ed here. We are going to be using some supplies and some tools that are going to spray hot sparks full of metal out along, and that's why we don't want you to just have flip-flops on it here. Long hair. If you have long hair, please make sure that you have something to tie it back with. If you want to bring in a hair tie and leave it in one of my cabinets here, eventually we'll assign you to a cabinet at the table where you're sitting. You can leave it here at Tech Ed. I have rubber bands, but I'm told those aren't the most
Never give a girl a rubber band.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm told they're not that comfortable. I would never recommend.
No, it just like pulls out all your hair.
Well, that means bring something in. If you have long clothing, loose-fitting jerseys, another big thing that around this time of year, hoodie strings. If you have hoodie strings, those need to be tucked in or the hoodie removed, so that way you don't have a hoodie string or a piece of long hair that wrapped around this spinning drill bit and have your face with an untimely meeting with a spinning sharp object. So please just keep that in mind, that nothing loose fitting. Make sure things aren't going to get wrapped around and have bad things happen. A couple common sense items here. Keep hands away from moving parts. Don't touch things that are sharp and spinning. Don't touch things that are hot and spinning. Don't touch things that could potentially hurt you. As 8th graders, sometimes we forget. Sometimes our common sense goes out the window here towards the second half of the year. Please do what you can to use your common sense. Next thing here, never leave a machine until it stops running. I'll give a demonstration here on our drill press. Drill press is off. Drill press is off. However, drill press is still spinning. Another big offender here is this bandsaw. Bandsaw runs forever. So make sure that you see it physically come to a stop. And actually, this one we found out this morning, the blades popped off of it, so we got to put a repair on that one. Do not make adjustments until you have supervision. In 7th grade, we tell you no adjustments whatsoever. 8th grade, you're going to have to make some adjustments on the machine. Some of these adjustments I'm going to teach you how to do today, and if you need help down the road, I can help you out with that as well. But we will be making some adjustments on the machines here in this particular class. Next, emergency steps. Emergency steps. If something bad happens in the lab, your instincts are going to tell you, whoa, that wasn't supposed to happen, or maybe this is not the best scenario. What you need to do First, if it's to you, if it's to somebody else, you're standing behind them in line, whatever, you need to kill the power to the machine that we're having a problem with. Kill the power. You can do that right here on these red buttons. Or if you happen to not be able to reach the power or need to be somewhere to kill the power, there is a button in the corners of the room, 4 corners of the room, called the emergency stop button. Emergency stop button kills the power to not just one machine, but all the machines in the lab. Don't use that unless it needs to be used, though. It's not a toy. Treat it like kind of like a fire alarm. All right. So 1, kill the power. 2, get to safety. Let's say somebody accidentally cuts our electrical wire here. We got sparks flying. We got crazy things happening. Not a good idea to try and swoop in and save the day. The easiest thing for you to do is get the heck away from it. Okay? Anything that's potentially dangerous, you don't need to try and save the day. Just do what you can to just get yourself to safety. Get away from it. That also includes if you're not real good with blood and things. If something actually occurs in the lab that there's some bloodshed and you start feeling lightheaded, sit down on the dirty floor. I'd rather you be a little bit dusty or dirty than you going face first into a spinning machine because you just passed out because you can't handle what's going on around you. Okay, so please just get yourself to safety. Last but not least, tell the teacher. I need to be made aware of anything that occurs here in this lab, whether it's an injury, an accident, a tool breaking. I need to be made aware of it. I need to be in charge. I need to be on top of that for it to, so that way I can try and make it either fix the tool that is broken, or I can also do my best to try and prevent a further accident from happening. I will not be mad at you if you tell me about getting injured or if you have a tool that breaks. Not a big deal. That's part of working here in this lab. Sometimes those things happen. What I will be mad at you is if I hear an email or get an email from mom, dad, or whoever at home that says, "What the heck, Mr. Finn? My son cut his finger off in your class today, and I don't know anything about it." That's where we're going to have a problem. I need to know. I need to be made aware of it, like I said, to try and prevent it from happening in the future. Okay, so 3 steps. 3 steps. Casey, 3 steps. When there's an emergency in the lab, go.
We go to you. No, we shut the power.
Shut the power off.
And we go to you, tell you about it, and
Forgetting that middle one. What's the middle one? Get yourself to safety. Okay, so kill the power, get to safety, tell the teacher. I need to know those. Next thing down on the list has to do with margin of safety. Margin of safety on the 8th grade exam is really, really difficult. So it's important that you're listening to these demos. And really, I would even carry a pencil with us while we're at the different machines. And I would mark down right next to what margin of safety is. Margin of safety is the area on a machine where body parts should not enter. Body parts should not enter. In other words, anywhere that you have a spinning, moving, sharp object, they should not, your fingers or any other body part should not enter that area. That's the margin of safety. When we go to 7th grade and the 7th grade machines, including the STEAM machines that we talked that some of you that have had STEAM, those are either 4 or 2 inches. In Tech Ed 8th grade, we take, like I said, we take a step up here, we get you into 6-inch margin machines. So these are machines that if used improperly, or you get your fingers inside of that 3-inch margin or 6-inch margin of safety, could potentially really harm you. So it's important that you take notes on what size and what machine and what margin of safety. Questions? All right, before we get out into our power machines, let's finish up here with some of our hand tools. Hand tools located in the closet over here. Once you pass your test, once I say you are now free to move about the classroom, get the tools that you need. This is all stuff that's free range for you to use. You don't have to get specific permission to use anything here in the top shelf of this tool cabinet. All hand tools are good to go once you get permission to use tools. Couple things here, couple rules of hand tools. I believe on the test you'll have to give a couple different rules for hand tools. 1, You are to cut away from yourself. Anytime you're using the tools, whether it's pliers or a knife or whatever, you're always trying to cut away from yourself. That brings me back to another one of the general general tool rules, something called the blood circle. You want to make sure that you are 1 arm's length away from anybody using a power machine, anybody using a hand tool, anybody that has something that can potentially harm you. You need to be an arm's length away. Same rule goes here for their hand tools. A couple of tools in here you may or may not use. This kind of includes some of these power tools. Dremel. This is for cutting out little small parts on your machine. Some of you might use these on our CO2 cars that we made in 7th grade. A couple rules on the Dremel. Dremel, 1, make sure it's turned off before you plug it in. And that goes for our sanders back here as well. Make sure any power tool that you plug in is turned off. Once you plug it in and it's on, it really gets interesting when it starts bouncing across the table. You don't want that happening. Make sure it's turned off. 2, anything that you're working on with a power hand tool must be either in the vise or clamped down to the table. It needs to be held down. Hand tools, I think that's about it. Once again, kind of common sense what to do. All right, hand tools we did. Let's talk a little bit about the project itself. Project itself, we are going to, and I'm going to try my best to give you a little bit of, hopefully save a class period or 2 in order to, I'm going to show you how to build the project that we're going to start with. And I'm going to do that at the same time as the safety demo. So that way we can maybe save a couple periods of me standing up here talking, more of you guys working on the tools and machinery. All right, questions about general tools, hand tools, anything along those lines? All right, so what I'm going to need you to do, I'm going to need you to, if you don't have a pair of glasses on already, you need to get a pair of safety glasses. You're going to meet me. Actually, you know what, take a look first at our layout. You flip through, and these packets should come around with you while I'm giving these demonstrations. There is a map of the shop, a little map of the shop, and there's also a little looking like, I don't know what you want to call it, family tree looking thing here on maybe 4 or 5 of the packets. This is what we're going to do. We are going to start at the top and work our way all the way down. It all starts, as far as our wood parts go, our wood parts start all as one piece. And I'll go over in detail as far as why that is the case. There's your map. There's your pen. Okay. This is almost like a checklist. Work your way through it, make the parts, make the product. Okay, and everybody will have a copy of this here for your set of plans. All right, so go ahead, grab yourself a pair of safety glasses. You are going to meet me over at the compound miter saw. It's over there on the left-hand wall there. My left, your right. Stop it, right?
I'm not that tall, what do you do?
You set it up. Miter saw. Compound miter saw is the first stop on our family tree of our check marks here. It says that we need to take this board down to 36 inches. So in other words, whatever board we collect, it needs to be at least, I believe, 4.5 inches by 36 inches. So we're going to mark our board. And really what we want to do first is we want to square up this end. We're going to give a nice square edge on here. Now, this compound miter saw, very dangerous saw if used improperly. 6-inch margin of safety, 6-inch margin of safety. So this is a new machine for those of you who did have tech ed last year. 6-inch margin of safety. There is a pretty nasty blade there that can really do some damage if this is used incorrectly. One of the most important things here out of this is that you have a firing order. There's a certain series of set of directions that you need to follow, or we have problems with boards flying across the shop. We don't want that to happen. So the firing order, and I'll do it without turning the power on right now, is to bring your part, or bring the saw out over top of your part, not touching your part. I guarantee you we'll have somebody do this. They'll start the saw with it touching the part, And then we've got a big problem on our hands. Not touching. There's a trigger here that you can use your right hand to pull. You would pull that trigger, allow it to get to full speed, and you'll hear the saw kind of whine out and not get any louder. That's full speed. Then you drop down and you push back towards the fence, and that's a test question. Push towards the fence. Out over top. You do not raise the blade of that saw until it has come to a full stop. Now, according to the plans, we need to mark ourselves 36 inches and make a cut. 36 inches. Pretty sure you guys know how to use a tape measure. We should have. Mark. Board needs to be pushed up against the fence and secured. Bring your cart over top. Remember, full speed, then drop down through, push back towards the fence, release, let it come to a full stop, then raise it. We have a 36-inch board there. All right, next step down the list, it says joint one edge. Joint one edge. We are going to use what's called our jointer, which is right here. You can move that camera.
Oh, sorry.
Test questions on this joiner. Test questions on this joiner. A lot of them are going to have to do with what's called grain direction. Grain direction. If you look at a piece of lumber has what's called a grain. It's kind of like the lines in the wood. Has to do with how the tree grew or it got chopped down for your 8th grade shop class pleasure. What we are doing here with our grain direction on the jointer, we are going to go, and this is what will be called with the grain. With the grain. In other words, you're following those lines on the board. Joiner, 6-inch margin of safety, 6-inch margin of safety. What we do with the joiner is we actually take the edge of this wood and we make it nice and smooth. We give it a nice square edge. Joiner, depending on how rough the board is that you're putting through the joiner, you might have to do it 3 or 4 times. Maybe in this case might not necessarily have to be that many times. Typically we would have the dust collection system running. I'm not going to turn that on just yet because it's super loud. All right, 6-inch margin of safety. We're going to go with the grain. Power's here. For the next step. And the next step has to do with the machine. Here, we gotta wait for this to come to a full stop. A machine that is called the planer. You can move around back this way. Come around back here. All right, planer. Surface planer, whatever you want to call it, surface planer. What this machine does is it takes a board and cuts it down to a certain thickness. The thickness on our project that we are going to do here for 8th grade is 3/4 of an inch. And most of the wood that comes our way, or lumber that comes our way, typically starts out at about 7/8 of an inch. So you're not taking a whole lot down off of this, but you are in fact using the planer. Planer, first thing what you'll do is you'll measure the board that you are using with the tape. Measure the board that you're going to cut down. Like I said, most of these come to us about 7/8. This one's close to 3/4 in itself. Planer, 6-inch margin of safety. Planer, Go with the grain, with the grain. And like I said, these are the big test questions on these machines. They have to do with margin of safety, and they have to do with grain direction. All right, I'm going to set my gauge over here. I measured this out to be about 7/8 of an inch. What I will be doing is I will be pushing this piece of lumber through the planer, and every time I pass it through, I can give one full rotation. This is where I talked about you actually doing some adjustments to the machines now. You're going to do one full rotation on the adjustment knob, which will bring it slightly down until we do this multiple times and bring it down to our 3/4 of an inch.
I'll see serious fix.
All right, we good?
Oh yeah.
All right, table saw. Table saw is a very useful but fairly dangerous, once again, piece of equipment here. Has a saw blade that comes up out of the middle of the table. Important things on this saw: margin of safety, 6 inches. This one can actually cut with or across the grain. We're not going to ask you the test question because it can do both. In this case, though, we are going to be cutting with the grain. We are going to set what's called our fence up to 4.5 inches, which is the thickness of our part. Now, we have jointed one edge. That jointed edge needs to go up against the fence. There is a test question. Test question asks, it's okay to cut freehand on the table saw. The answer to that is absolutely not. This machine is much, much, much more powerful than you to stand here and hold this thing and try and hold your part while the machine goes and cuts. If we use our fence here, we can eliminate that. So the fence will actually hold it in and hold it nice and square up against. You don't have anything to worry about as far as having to hold this down. Fence will take care of that for you. Now, a couple things here. Anytime we're inside of our margin of safety, what's the margin of safety on this machine? 6 inches. So in that case, because there's a 4.5 inch gap here, I can't just put my fingers here. If I put my fingers here, I'm inside of that 6 inch margin of safety. So we're going to use these things. These are what are called push sticks. The push sticks, they can be used to force parts through when you go through a margin of safety that you're inside of that margin of safety. So, guard needs to be down. Some operations that the teachers will do and sometimes require us to remove the guard. You as an 8th grade student will never cut anything on this saw with the guard removed. If you happen to come over here and see that the guard has been moved, in other words, not on there because Mr. Finn, Mr. Hooper, or Mr. Peapack were making a cut, you need to let us know immediately and we'll make sure to get the guard put on. Alright, what we'll do here, once again, power is a little bit different. It's actually this big red button here. You actually pull it out as opposed to pushing it in. And the reason why is if you're cutting a big long board and you needed to turn the power up, You can actually hit that with your knee and turn it off. Makes it kind of a safety feature. All right. Up against the fence with your jointed edge. Power. It's usually a good idea to have a helper on the other side here that brings your part through for you. All right, table saw. Margin of safety, 6 inches. It is okay to cut freehand. True or false? False. Okay. So now we have a 36-inch board that's 4.5 inches wide by 3/4 of an inch thick. Where do we go next? Take a look at your. I didn't tell you which way it went, whether it's with or against the grain. What do we see here if we're going this way?
Against the grain.
Against or across or whatever that's not with. Okay? We're going to mark. What's it say?
5.5.
5.5. We're going to mark 5.5. Now, a couple things here about the compound miter. You will see that there are teeth. One goes one way, one goes the other. That's what's called a set. The set is what actually disappears when we make sawdust. So the sawdust comes out of the board. It's got to come from somewhere. It's going to come from the piece of wood that goes away. So when you're cutting things on the compound miter saw, you need to take note as far as what side is going to be left. So in this case, we want to take from the side to the left because when we cut down with the saw, about a 1/16 of an inch goes away because of the sawdust. We can cut that and it'll be the right size still. So this one's a little tricky. There's like a safety thing here and then a handle to pull. Once again, pull it out over your material. Come to full stop. Raise it up. This will be your part for the drill bit holder that we're making. What else does it say? Over here. Say it again.
Hey, what's up? You know what it is.
Yeah.